Dear chosen one, not every fall is loud. Sometimes it doesn't come with thunder or drama. Sometimes it begins with a whisper, a quiet change deep inside, a small compromise, a hidden moment of pride, a tiny shift in beliefs that feels harmless at first. But that's how it starts. The fall doesn't always feel like crashing. Sometimes it feels like drifting away without even noticing. And before you know it, you're not the same person you used to be. Being a chosen one isn't about having a title or being special just for the sake of it. It's a responsibility. It means you were picked to carry something sacred, to spread light, to heal people, to bring peace where there's pain. It's a calling that comes with power. But with that power also comes a test. Because power, especially spiritual power, is a heavy thing to carry. It can either build or destroy, uplift or control. And when someone who is chosen starts to listen more to their ego than to their soul, that power can become dangerous. It usually starts small. A chosen one may still talk like they always have. They might still look the part, still use the same language, still say the right things. But something in their heart changes. Their intentions shift. What used to come from love starts to come from pride. What used to be about helping others becomes more about helping themselves. And even though their words sound holy, their energy doesn't feel the same anymore. They begin to use their spiritual gifts not to heal, but to influence. They know how to read people, how to sense emotions, how to speak in a way that moves hearts. But instead of using that to bring peace, they start using it to control. Their energy doesn't lift others anymore. It pulls them in, keeps them close, makes them dependent. The love they used to offer freely now comes with conditions. Their message becomes about gaining attention, admiration, and control. They may still look like a leader, but the spirit behind their leadership has shifted. One of the first things to disappear is empathy. A true chosen one feels deeply. They feel other people's pain like it's their own. They sit with the broken. They hold space for the hurting. They carry the weight of others with love and patience. But when someone strays from the path, that softness fades. They become emotionally distant, cold. They stop crying with those who cry. They stop feeling joy for others' success. The struggles of others don't move them anymore. Instead of showing compassion, they offer criticism. Instead of listening, they dismiss. They forget that they were once lost too. That sense of us turns into me versus them. They talk down to people instead of walking beside them. They begin to act like they have all the answers, and everyone else is just behind or beneath them. And that's when people begin to feel it. Something is off. The warmth is gone. The light feels artificial. And the community that once grew from connection now feels like a crowd around a stage. Soon, they begin to isolate themselves, not to rest or protect their peace, but because they believe they're above others. They pull away from people who challenge them, who speak truth, who remind them of humility. They surround themselves only with those who praise them, who agree with them, who never question their actions. They say things like, "People are too negative," or "No one understands me," but really, they just don't want to be corrected. They confuse pride with protection. They stop being reachable, not because they're too spiritual, but because they're too proud. And when they do speak, it's no longer from a place of deep truth. It's from a place of performance. Everything starts to feel rehearsed. The words may still be powerful, but they lack real heart. It's more about how they look, how many likes they get, how many people are listening. Their focus is no longer on the message, but on how it makes them appear. They used to say, "I carry the light." Now they say, "I am the light." And that small change means everything, because they've moved from serving the spirit to serving their image. They post more about themselves than the truth. They share their faith more than they share wisdom. Their page becomes a brand, not a mission. Their life becomes a highlight reel, not a reflection of service. They chase followers instead of following the calling. They want to be seen more than they want to be used for good. And as their ego grows, the real purpose they were called for starts to fade into the background. This kind of transformation doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't always look evil from the outside. In fact, many people still admire them. They still draw crowds. They still receive praise. But what people don't always see is the emptiness behind the scenes, the loss of real connection with spirit, the growing distance from truth, the isolation from those who would speak honestly to them. And if you're reading this and something inside you is stirring, pay attention to that feeling. Maybe this message found you for a reason. Maybe it's not about someone else. Maybe it's about you. Maybe you've been feeling far from your purpose. Maybe you've been questioning your path. Maybe you've noticed a shift in your own heart, a change in why you do what you do. This is not about shame. It's not about guilt. It's about awareness. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about realigning with the truth of who you are and why you were chosen in the first place. You still have time. You still have power. But the question is, what are you using it for? Your spiritual gifts are still intact. Your calling hasn't been taken away. But you must return to the reason you were given those gifts: to love, to heal, to serve. Strip away the image. Lay down the pride. Let your heart soften again. Let your soul breathe again. You don't need to impress anyone to walk in your purpose. You just need to be real, to be humble, to stay connected to spirit. Sometimes the greatest rise comes after the fall. And sometimes the fall itself is what wakes you up. If you've been lost, you can be found. If you've been drifting, you can come back. If you've been using your life for the wrong reasons, you can choose again. The path is still open. Grace is still waiting. You were never chosen because you were perfect. You were chosen because you were willing. Willing to feel deeply. Willing to speak truth. Willing to walk with others in love. And you can still do that. You can return to the real you, the you that was never about fame or image or power, the you that was called to serve something greater. Let this message be your mirror. Let it show you where you are and where you can go. Let it remind you that the light isn't lost. It just needs to be uncovered again. Beneath all the noise, the expectations, the ego, your true calling still burns. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. You just have to be willing to let spirit lead again. Because when you walk in love, when you speak from truth, when you choose humility over pride, that's when your light shines brightest. You are still chosen, and you can still rise. There's something deeply troubling that happens when someone who was once filled with light begins to drift into darkness, not in obvious ways, but in quiet, spiritual ones. It doesn't start with them turning away from their beliefs or abandoning their faith. No, what makes it so dangerous is that they keep using spiritual language. But instead of using it to heal, uplift, or guide, they use it to control, to manipulate, and to justify harmful actions. What was once sacred becomes twisted. They start using phrases like divine timing to excuse betrayal. They might say righteous judgment when they're really just seeking revenge. They'll quote sacred texts to make themselves look holy, even when their actions are anything but. You'll hear them say things like, God told me to cut people off, or the universe doesn't want me to engage with low vibrational people, when really, they just don't want to be questioned or challenged. They hide behind spiritual words like a mask, but the energy underneath those words has changed. At first, it may not be easy to notice. From the outside, everything seems the same. They still post inspirational messages. They still pray or teach. But the feeling is different. Their words don't bring peace anymore. They bring pressure. They don't speak to help others grow. They speak to protect their own image. The light they once carried has dimmed, but because they still speak the language of light, it confuses people. It deceives them, and it allows the darkness to spread without being seen. As they fall deeper into this, they begin to reject any form of correction. Someone walking in true spiritual wisdom is open to feedback. They understand that growth comes from reflection, from being open to learning, from admitting mistakes. But once pride creeps in, that door closes. They no longer welcome advice. They don't want to hear other perspectives. They surround themselves with people who always agree, people who never challenge them. Any voice that questions them is seen as negative, toxic, or even an enemy. Slowly, their world becomes smaller. It turns into an echo chamber where only their voice and the voices of their followers are heard. They believe they are always right. They begin to act as if they're above being corrected. It's no longer, God is guiding me. It becomes, I am the guide. That shift is subtle, but powerful and dangerous. Because now, they're not following the Spirit anymore. They believe they are the Spirit. And once someone starts thinking that way, they no longer listen to the guidance that once kept them humble and aligned. The downfall doesn't usually happen in one big crash. It happens slowly, like water dripping on a stone. Little by little, the light fades. Little by little, they stop seeking truth and start seeking attention. The absence of accountability creates a hollow space inside them, and pride rushes in to fill it. And then comes the thirst for power. This might be the saddest transformation of all. What began as a sincere mission, a desire to help others, to walk in purpose, to be a vessel of healing, turns into a desire to be seen, admired, and followed. They start to care more about their image than their impact. They crave influence more than alignment. They perform for the crowd instead of praying in silence. Their platform becomes their identity. You can feel the shift. They used to speak softly, with love and patience. Now, their tone is sharp, performative, commanding. Their energy used to make people feel safe. Now, it makes people feel small. Their presence used to be filled with grace. Now, it's full of performance. They've become addicted to being admired, to being worshipped. They don't just want to guide people, they want to be followed. They don't want to serve, they want to be served. And like any addiction, the hunger only grows. They'll say and do whatever it takes to keep the spotlight on them. The spotlight, once a place of purpose, becomes a cage. And they don't even see it happening. They believe they're still doing good. They believe they're still chosen. But the humble, sincere spirit that made them magnetic is fading. What's left is a carefully crafted image, powered by applause and pride. And then, chaos begins to show up in their life. Relationships fall apart. Conflict follows them everywhere. They say people are jealous. They say they're under attack. But the truth is, the disorder on the outside is a reflection of the disorder on the inside. They're no longer in alignment. And because they're no longer at peace within, they can't create peace around them. Their energy attracts chaos. They've become a storm instead of a calm. If every relationship they touch becomes toxic, if every space they enter feels tense, maybe it's not the world that's the problem. Maybe it's them. But here's the most important part. This message is not meant to shame anyone. It's not about punishment or judgment. It's about invitation. If you see yourself in this, if any part of this feels familiar, don't run. Don't hide. This isn't the universe turning its back on you. This is the universe trying to bring you back. Because darkness doesn't always show up in obvious ways. It doesn't always wear red or look like evil. Sometimes it hides in pride, in ego, in disconnection from the divine. It shows up in silence, in avoidance, in self-importance. And it grows when we ignore it. But you're not lost. You're not too far gone. The light inside you is still there. Maybe it's dim. Maybe it's buried under pain or pride or pressure. But it's not dead. It's waiting for you. And all it takes is a choice, a real, honest choice to come back. If you've been drifting, if your spirit has felt tired or off track, this is your moment. Not to be perfect, not to have all the answers, but to return, to realign, to reconnect. You don't have to stay where you are. You can come back to purpose, back to truth, back to love. You can let go of the need to perform and just be. You don't have to lead thousands to be worthy. You don't have to be right all the time to be valuable. You just have to be willing to grow, to listen, to heal. So if something in this message stirred something deep inside you, if you felt seen, even in the uncomfortable parts, don't ignore that. That's your spirit waking up. That's grace knocking. That's your invitation to begin again. Type 11 or 111 in the comments if you're ready to step back into alignment. Not because it's trendy, not because you want attention, but because your soul is ready, because your purpose is calling, because you know you were meant for more than pride, more than performance. You were meant for peace, truth, and love. This space, this channel, this message, it's not just content. It's a reminder, a mirror, a call to every seeker, every warrior, every soul that's wandered a little too far. You can come back. The journey isn't over. The story isn't finished. The light inside you is not gone. It's just waiting. Let's relight that fire.